Hi everybody. Is it on? Is it on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No.
I just want to tell you how much this girl means to me. Dan and Donna divorced 7 years ago, and we lost touch, and we reconnected when this tragedy happened. And it's like we've never left each other. She picked me up at the airport on Friday, and we've been pulling blonde moves and Donna moves, and we've had such a good time. But I want to tell you guys how much she loved Dan, how hard she worked, hours and hours and hours on all of these photo albums and her computer video pictures, and she ordered some special guitar keychains for everybody. So when you leave, I don't want anybody to leave, but don't forget when you leave, Donna ordered specially to pick out a keychain, and she also has a beautiful memorial picture of Dan, with actually 3 pictures, and she had those made. She just spent so much time and money, and I just want to thank you with all my heart. And my parents, thank you. And this just means so much to us. That's all. Thank you so much for coming.
We dated for 4 years, we were for 7. Now 21 years. For 14 years. A week in September was our time in Minnesota. At a lake cabin on Lake Winnie. And that's why the song means so much. Even though we were divorced, we loved each other much, and we talked 4 or 5 times a week. Helped each other through every problem neither one of us ever had. And I think we were closer being friends than what we were when we were married. It really was. We meant everything to each other. And that's why that song is so special. We were so happy that Mike and Sandy were able to go on our last trip together last year to Lake Winnie. And this week, the week that Dan died, we were all 4 supposed to be yet again for our year 15 for Dan and I. And Mike and Sandy's second trip with us to our favorite spot in cabin 12, which I have a picture of our 2 chairs by our cabin where we found so much peace and solitude and just wonderfulness, being away from everything and feeling God's presence and the feeling of being outside and gorged with the air of everything and releasing all the pressures from the world and everything else going away and just being there at peace. And that's why this song, Autumn Leaves, will forever touch me. Thank you all very much.
And please have some chili.
Get some of that chili there.
Can you make that tighter on my hand? Okay, I'm going to put this on you so you can tell. Put what on there? This camera. So you can talk about Dan. Just a little something about what you remember and who you are. You have to say who you are. You're my first one.
And we used to talk on the phone for hours, or I'd go over there and hang out, and we would just visit and talk about life. And if I had a problem, I could tell him anything, and he could tell me anything. And I miss him a lot.
Yeah.
This will be edited, right? Anyway, so it'll be clean.
It probably will be. Just your memories of Dan, who you are.
I'm Mark Thrower. I've known Dan for 20 years. He was one of the first guys I met when I started Dallas Semiconductor in 1990. Dan was truly the best at what he did when I did work with him. Sparing you the boring technical details or anything, but Dan was somebody that I was so glad when he was part of our team, because I knew it would get done right, and I really didn't have to worry about anything. And Dan and I, in talking, found out we had music in common, and we talk about that a lot. I suppose one of the funnier memories I have is when he bought one of his keyboards, him sending me all sorts of pictures of it over email, and then calling me and playing it for me on the telephone. There's a lot of stories, of course, about Dan having music, sharing music in common with so many of us. But that's just one example. Anyway, I guess. Let's see. I guess that's about everything I can think of at the moment.
Space. Can't remember the rest of the tune. Come on.
Steve.
Why?
How do you know Dan, Steve?
Anyway,
You can zoom in.
You can talk to me if you want to.
Okay.
I'm Dan through Steve, and we're friends.
That's Mary.
Yes, my name is Mary Porter, and that's how I met Dan. He was always real nice to me. What funded me on him was that he always used to kiss me. That scared me. But he was my friend, so, and I would ask Steve, why was he kissing me? On the forehead, on the cheek, nothing like, So I was just like, okay, what do I do?
Because you want me to beat him up again.
No, he didn't.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Steve, not moi. Anyway, we were friends, and then after that we met. I introduced him to Jan, my sister, and
That's sister.
We hit it off like
You
two peas in a pod.
gotta say it like them know it's sister.
Really, really in tune with each other. He was a fantastic person. I loved him to death. We did long hours on the phone. We went shot pool a lot and used what he called my stick, and it was actually Donna's stick. And I used to beat him with it. He used to get so upset with me, but we learned a lot from each other. I just loved him for the person he was. It was fantastic. My best memory of Dan was on his birthday. He wanted me to come, and I thought I had to work, so I had to tell him I couldn't come. And then I got out of work. I told Mary Ann, don't say a word. I'm going to go, and I'm going to surprise him.
so I was the only one that was coming, and I couldn't say that my sister was coming too. So I said,
And I cater.
Steve catered.
And he did a wonderful job. It was great. But Dan came down the stairs, and he saw me, and he just lit right up. It was wonderful. That was my best memory of him.
It's Mike's turn. How do you know Dan, Mike?
I went to college with Dan.
Yeah.
And we moved down to Texas together.
My mom just went in there though.
I've known Dan for 30 years. I went to Cancun with him. When he first came down to Texas, he was the last guy to come out of our class to come down here. He was kind of hemming and hawing about coming down, and then decided one day he came down, and we were neighbors. He moved into an apartment next to us, and because he moved in next to us, the apartment complex had a deal where they gave us a trip to Cancun. So Dan and I went to Cancun and had a great time. Dan and Dobe always jammed together. They always, it was get together, and Dobe was my roommate, and Dan, and they just play guitar all the time. Just come back and sit back and jam. I can't play any music or anything, but I can listen.
Did you work with Dan?
Yes, I worked with Dan at TI, Train Company, and Dallas Semi.
Were you from La Crosse?
Yeah.
So you remember his folks?
Well, I met him. I think I met his mom once when I went to a jam session at his house in his parents' basement.
Is that the one Arlo was at?
That was one of them. They had a couple of them. Dan was always jamming. But I don't know if they remember me. It was a long time ago. It was. our trip to Cancun was a lot of fun. We got a bad case of Montezuma's revenge on the way back. We're flying back, and we had to we'd fight over who had the bathroom next. And when they say don't drink the water, they really mean it. But he's got a blanket, an Indian blanket that says Cancun on it. That was one that we got when we were in Cancun together, and I got one identical to it. That was a great trip. We had a lot of fun, and we've got 30 years down here, or 28. But
you went to the motor speedway with him?
Yeah. I used to taking pictures was a big deal for me, and I used to go with Dan. We'd take pictures out at the speedway, with the drag races down in Ennis, and did all kinds of things. He's a great guy.
Are we live?
Okay, it's going. Let's turn around this way. There's too much light behind you that way.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, just want to let you know I'm Mike Smith, and I worked with Dan for over 20 years and got to know him very well. He was a great employee. We worked directly on several projects. Many of the chip designs that he worked on were ones that I worked with him together on. Always appreciated him. He was an excellent employee, did tremendous work. And I got to know him on a personal basis too through the years. He's a great guy. I'm also a guitar player, as you probably saw from the earlier video, and we talk guitars a lot, we talk studio equipment a lot, so we're constantly jabbering about the latest guitars, about the latest equipment, and I always enjoyed that through the years, and Dan and I stayed real close, and I really appreciated getting to know your son. He was a great guy, and I just hope that this is something that will be a bit of a healing process for you, and it's just really been great for me to go back and remember Dan and the great times we had together and seeing some of the friends. And so I really appreciate your son. And just blessings on you guys. Okay? Yep.
And I'm in the shadows.
Definitely one of the best professionals.
And you also work, I know we met, you worked with him also, right?
I worked with him in the same building.
And we're talking about you over here.
4 or 5 years. Before he went home to work.
Before he went home, yeah.
So he taught me a lot of stuff when I first started working with him. He was the best layout designer I ever met.
Really?
Absolutely. A good guy. He used to go, me and him and a guy named Jimmy Johnson used to go.
Oh, Jimmy Johnson, I remember.
We used to go on each one of us' birthdays. That was three. We had birthdays about 4 months apart, and so that was our excuse to go on long lunch with birthday bashes.
Every 3 months, yeah.
Kind of hit a 3 or 4 year tradition of doing that. He was a good guy.
He was a very good guy.